Life is full of hidden secrets, and one of the most powerful secrets is the ability to turn a small dream into something huge. Sometimes people are stuck in life, facing obstacles they never thought they would encounter. But with belief, patience, and the willingness to fight through the hardest times, the smallest beginnings can lead to the most extraordinary success. Let's explore the story of someone who did just that, turning $5 a day into millions. In this journey, we'll see struggles, grief, heartbreak, and moments of pure triumph. We'll also see the power of hope and resilience that can transform a life. It all started with a young man named Luke Harris, a 22-year-old living in a small apartment in Chicago. Life wasn't easy for him. He had no family to rely on, no close friends nearby, and his job at a fast food restaurant barely covered his bills. But Luke had one thing that others didn't, an unshakable belief that he could do more. One rainy evening after a particularly long shift, Luke sat in his room staring at his phone. He only had $5 in his account, a meager amount, but he wasn't discouraged. Instead, he had a thought that changed everything. What if I could make this $5 work for me? What if this small amount could be the beginning of something big? He wondered. He wasn't sure how or why, but he was determined to find out. He spent the next few weeks watching free online videos and reading books on how to invest, save, and make money online. His savings were still small, but he knew the first step was to learn. The path wasn't easy. Every day, Luke felt the weight of loneliness. He'd spend hours working, and then spend the rest of his time learning, trying to find ways to use his limited resources wisely. Sometimes, when he felt the weight of his dreams, he would break down. Luke had lost his parents at a young age and had no family left. His biggest fear was being alone forever. This fear only grew when, one night, he found an old photo of his parents while cleaning his room. The photo made him miss them so much. It brought him to tears. He felt their absence deeply, realizing they would never get to see the life he was working so hard to build. He felt like he was chasing something that was almost impossible. How could a lonely, broke young man make millions? But something inside him refused to give up. Every tear, every loss, and every lonely night made him more determined. Luke knew that he had to fight for something more. He was carrying their hopes, too. Luke's first breakthrough came when he found an online course about dropshipping. He didn't have much money to invest in inventory, but he discovered he could sell products without holding stock. After months of research, he finally spent his last $5 to run a Facebook ad for a simple product: phone cases. He didn't know if it would work, but after a few days the sales started coming in. It was a small amount at first, but it was a sign. That $5 turned into $10 and then $20. Every time he saw the sales numbers grow, he felt like he was one step closer to his dream. He had no idea what would happen next, but he knew that the power of persistence would get him through. But Luke's journey wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of failure, of dreams being shattered, and of feeling like nothing would ever work out. He had many nights where he felt hopeless. The loneliness crept in again, and he began to wonder if he was truly capable of achieving his dreams. One evening, after a tough day of losses in his business, Luke sat on his couch staring at his phone. A message popped up on the screen from an old friend, Jake. It was a simple message, but it hit Luke hard. "I miss you, bro. I've been thinking about you. You've got this." That simple message was the push Luke needed. For the first time in months, he realized he wasn't completely alone. He had people who believed in him, even if they weren't physically there. Luke wiped his tears, and with a renewed sense of purpose, he dove back into his business. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Luke's business started growing at an incredible rate. By the time he was 25, he had built a brand that reached millions of people. But as his success grew, so did the challenges. His family, his friends, his own happiness were all put to the test. In the middle of his success, Luke faced an even greater loss. He lost his best friend Jake to a car accident. The grief was overwhelming. He had just begun to rebuild his friendship with Jake after years of distance, and now Jake was gone. Luke went to the funeral, his heart aching with regret. There were so many things Luke wished he could have said to Jake, so many unspoken words. He realized how much he had taken the people he loved for granted. As he stood at the cemetery, watching his best friend's casket being lowered into the ground, Luke vowed to never let the people he loved feel unimportant again. Success, as Luke soon learned, was bittersweet. He had all the money, all the recognition, but nothing could replace the love and connection he had lost. Despite the success, there was a deep emptiness inside him. Luke's life had been changed forever. His company was now valued in the millions, and he had everything he had once dreamed of. But he couldn't help but feel that something important was missing. The people he loved were gone, and he couldn't bring them back. The cost of his success was something he hadn't expected to pay. But as he sat alone in his office late one night staring at his millions in the bank, he made a decision. He would not let his success be in vain. He would give back. He would use his wealth to help others who had been where he was, lost, lonely, struggling. He would never forget where he started. Luke's story became one of inspiration. He shared his story with the world, speaking at conferences, creating free courses, and helping those who were struggling just like he had. Through his losses, he found a deeper purpose. There were still days when Luke cried. There were still moments of grief, moments when he missed his family and friends. But now, every tear was part of his healing, part of his growth. He had turned his life around, and in doing so, he had learned that success wasn't just about money. It was about the people you help, the love you share, and the legacy you leave behind. The emotional roller coaster of his journey had taught him one vital lesson. Even in the darkest moments, there is always hope. Luke's story was a testament to the power of perseverance, to the strength of the human spirit, and to the fact that even when life feels like it's falling apart, there is always a chance to rebuild. From $5 a day to making millions, Luke had proved that no matter how small the beginning, no matter how great the pain, with hope, hard work, and heart, anything is possible. Luke's story didn't just end with the success of his business. In fact, his journey was just beginning. As he grew his empire, Luke found himself constantly reflecting on the lessons he had learned, lessons that went far beyond financial success. Despite the millions he had earned, there was still a part of him that craved something more: connection, understanding, and a sense of peace. He often thought back to those early days when he barely had enough money to buy food. He remembered sitting in his tiny apartment late at night, scrolling through his phone, feeling like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. There were moments when he almost gave up, when the fear of failure seemed overwhelming. But every time he thought about giving up, something inside him refused to let go. It was as though a voice whispered to him, urging him to keep going. "You've got this. Don't stop now. You're meant for something bigger." Luke held on to that voice, that small flicker of hope, and it carried him through every setback, every heartbreak, and every loss. There were days when the loneliness crept in again, when he missed his parents, when he wished he could turn to someone for comfort. But with each passing day, Luke learned how to turn that loneliness into strength. He learned how to keep moving forward, even when he felt like giving up. One of the most painful lessons Luke learned was that success doesn't shield you from pain. It doesn't make life perfect, nor does it erase the past. As his business grew, so did the pressure. He found himself more isolated, more distant from the friends and family he had left. The feeling of guilt grew heavier with every passing year. He wondered if he had sacrificed too much in pursuit of his dream. His relationship with his aunt, who had supported him when his parents passed, became strained. The distance between them grew, and they fought over things that didn't seem important at first, but now felt like insurmountable problems. Luke's heart ached with regret. He knew he hadn't been there for her the way he should have been. The guilt weighed on him, and he often found himself staring at the phone, hesitating to reach out. But one day, after months of silence, he picked up the phone and called her. "I'm sorry," he said softly, his voice breaking. "I've been so caught up in everything, but I haven't forgotten you. Please forgive me." To his surprise, his aunt forgave him. They talked for hours, and although it wasn't easy, Luke knew that the relationship they had was worth rebuilding. It wasn't just about money or success. It was about love, forgiveness, and the people who had been there for him when he had nothing. Despite all his hard work, Luke found himself staring at his phone one evening, thinking about the future. He had everything: a successful business, a comfortable life, and the respect of his peers. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. He wanted to feel whole again. It was during a visit to his childhood home, now empty and filled with memories, that Luke truly understood the depth of his journey. He stood in the living room, looking at the place where his parents had once sat, laughing and talking. The walls seemed to whisper memories, and the silence was deafening. Luke sat on the old couch, his heart heavy with emotion. He thought about how much he wished he could share his success with them, how much he wanted them to see him now. He wished they could have been there to see him succeed. Tears rolled down his face as he realized that while success had brought him financial freedom, it could never bring back the people he loved. But it wasn't just the absence of his parents that hurt. It was the realization that, despite everything he had achieved, he had to let go. He had to stop living in the past and start embracing the future. He had to forgive himself for the mistakes he made along the way and let go of the guilt that had weighed him down for so long. As Luke sat in the quiet of his childhood home, he made a decision. He would take everything he had learned, the pain, the grief, the lessons, and use them to make the world a better place. He would share his story not just as a success story, but as a journey of healing, of overcoming grief, and of embracing the beauty of vulnerability. He would use his platform to help others who had faced the same struggles, the same loneliness, the same moments of heartbreak. Luke knew that his success wasn't just about the millions he had earned. It was about the impact he could make on others' lives, about inspiring them to never give up, no matter how small their beginnings were. In the years that followed, Luke became a mentor to many. He shared his story with anyone who would listen, encouraging them to keep going even when it felt like everything was falling apart. He opened schools for underprivileged children, providing them with the resources and opportunities they needed to succeed. He built foundations that helped families struggling with grief, loss, and loneliness, offering counseling and support to those who needed it most. Through it all, Luke never forgot where he came from. He stayed humble, always remembering the days when he barely had enough money to eat. He continued to help those who were struggling, even when it seemed impossible. And most importantly, he found peace. The story of Luke Harris isn't just one of financial success. It's a story of heartache and growth, of losing and finding, of grieving and healing. Luke learned that success doesn't just mean making millions. It means finding peace within yourself, connecting with others, and using your experiences to help the world around you. And in the end, Luke discovered that the real treasure wasn't in the money he had earned. It was in the love he gave, the people he helped, and the peace he found in his heart.